we started investing in India, I think the initial thesis was technology had penetrated and grown in other countries. Technology is going to penetrate and grow here. And if I go back and think, in 2004, when I started the pitch, it was look at PC penetration rates in different countries, and PC penetration in India was just about starting. So therefore, all the online companies should start to be built now. And that was the thesis, and that took us into a ClearTrip, InfoEdge, Map My India. We're very Internet 1.0 businesses, and the world was kind of aligned towards that. And we have to also understand that investing in these kind of cases is a balance between what the world wants to hear and what is reality. And the world definitely was happy to hear tech is coming, it's going to change everything, it's a model we've seen, let's go. And in fact, I think we believed it, like that was going to be the shift. Now, at that time, organized retail was about 4% of the market. 96% was unorganized. And the intent was it's going to grow online, and that's going to be great. And if you look at where we are today, organized retail has become 12% of the market. Now, that still means that we're dealing with about 90% of the market being offline. And that 90% that's offline still has a long way to go in terms of organization. In the US, by the time tech came and started saying, I'm going to make it a more efficient world, you had already had organization take place. You already had your Circuit Cities and Best Buys for electronics. You had your Home Depots, you had your Gaps, you had your malls, you had everything had happened. In India, we never had the big bad retailer actually get enough traction. The mom and pop shop continued to exist. You have 50 million small, medium-sized businesses in the country. So the opportunity kind of said, all right, we're going to go straight past all this organization offline and go to online. And yes and no. Part of that is happening. And I do think that you have this opportunity that exists to leverage that channel, but that channel is also becoming monopolistic, oligopolistic, where you have Amazon, Flipkart, and Jio basically controlling your distribution there. You have Google and Facebook controlling your advertising there. So actually, to some extent, to create awareness and build your brand, sometimes the offline channel is more efficient. What happened for us is we set up Lightbox. We said that, look, we've been playing in the distribution game. ClearTrip was distributing travel. If we looked at it, Map My India was giving you access to maps. It was all, you're playing in some part of a margin on distribution. You realize then that with the lack of organization, you have the opportunity to actually play in the product margin as well. And so that means that you can actually own the product and distribute that as well. And especially given that we're an open country, everybody's going to come here and compete. So as a result, you can actually say, look, if I want to play in the product game, then I got to be where the customer is. And 90% of the customer is offline. So it just makes sense. And it's almost like that stores is marketing as well for the online side. And we've seen, whether it's, take Zeno as an example, people that work with us online and offline for pharmacy as well are almost 2.5 times more valuable in their average order value. We saw that with Melora, even though it had its own other challenges in the business, that the retail store enhanced the experience for what the online customer is willing to buy. I also think it's a trust equation. It's funny, in India, you have a market where you use a Bollywood star to market cement. And when we talk to someone about why, what does that have to do with anything? It's a trust factor. And it's the idea that, like, I don't know what I'm getting, I don't know what I'm trusting, but if Amitabh Bachchan is on that, it must be legit. And so I will get the Banani cement. And you can't tell me it's Banani cement, I feel good about it. So therefore everyone creates some brand value because there's a trust deficit that exists because we've been a Jugaad society in terms of how things have been made. And so now all of this allows us to kind of pull it together and bring some trust. So physical presence means I have a neck to grab if something goes wrong. And I think that that's the logic. And so that's why, whether it's a Rebel, a Furlenco, a Melora, a BSC, we went into businesses where offline was a critical part of it. And actually, I think that's the big difference in venture in India that didn't exist in the US or in other markets, quite honestly. But that's a story that people aren't necessarily willing to buy into from a venture standpoint. Venture was intended to be tech. If it's retail, well, then that's private equity's world. That's private equity's world because they were scaled businesses. When they're not scaled businesses, and you have to build them from start, there is a venture opportunity there because venture goes to places where other dollars don't come. You can't get debt, you're not rich enough on your own, there's no friends and family money. So there's an opportunity. So I think that opportunity very much exists as a venture opportunity because other sources of capital aren't willing to play it. And the return profile of it may not look like a J curve, but the steep linearity of that is very attractive and does create great return. When we did Furlenco at the beginning, when we did Melora, when we did Rebel was kitchens. But when we did those, we didn't have offline in the strategy at the start. By the time we got to BSC, which was the last investment in Fund 2, probably around 2019, we come to it because we saw they had offline stores. And we saw their offline stores were working. And we said that if we can actually, and our intent was, let's take your offline strength and see how we can bring it online. What we've come to learn as time has gone is, let's keep building on your offline strength. Online will happen as it happens. It's a difficult, CAC intensive, expensive endeavor, which enhances when you have offline presence, but it doesn't have to be the primary driver of what the value will be. Bombay Shirt Company stores break even within 1 to 2 months and pay back within 9 months. I mean, those store retail economics just are amazing. Today at Zeno, the new stores we're opening are breaking even within 2 to 3 months and are on a path to paying back within 18 months. So we're understanding that actually, look, if you're intelligent about how you use tech to make sure that you can manage your store better, then you're building a better version of all this. And so that is clearly unique, differentiated, creates a sustainable moat for your business. And so let's not fight it. Why are we saying that, no, we must only be tech and we must only be online, where meanwhile, honestly, you're just making Google and Facebook richer while you're just trying to figure out how to acquire customers there. Look, I do think that it starts with, let's get your gross margins right. And I think this is the learning that's come out over at least the past year as we've looked at our businesses. Every time, everything starts from there. What you have to spend comes from what your cost of goods are and what your pricing is to the customer. So I don't think the companies spend enough time on that side of the equation. Forget which channel first. So step one is get as much as you can to spend from that point forward. So once you've done that, and once you continue to keep a focus on that, a thought on that, is your pricing correct? Is your cost of goods correct? Then now we're saying, okay, where am I acquiring customers? And I think here you have to understand at what price you can acquire online that makes sense for you, and stop at that price. We're not going to go beyond that. We're not going to chase irrational blitz scaling growth for the idea that we're going to get this customer online and keep them forever. It doesn't work that way. I think that the idea of blitz scaling is a nice idea for the Valley. It's not the right answer for businesses like this that need to be built in a methodical way. Then we're talking about retail. On the offline side, density, I think, is really important. I think too many companies get into this mindset of, I need to be everywhere. And actually what you can do is you can go to certain markets and you can skim. You can get the top early adopters. I can be in a Jaipur, I can be in a Coimbatore, I can be in a Pune, I can be in a Calcutta. I can be in so many markets and I can get that initial adopter there. But I'm getting no operating leverage on the back end. So instead, I would rather say, I'm going to keep fighting for the customers that I can get in a Bombay and just be here. So let's increase the number of stores you have here. So Zeno, for example, we're very clear on the roadmap to 400 stores in Bombay. I don't need to leave Bombay. Before there used to be a thought of let's expand to other cities. Why? Because we have to show people that we can operate in other cities. Who cares? I mean, if you can figure it out here and I can build 400 stores here, I will be a profitable cash flow generating company, at which point I will choose my path of expansion and I will do it the way I want to. So I think the playbooks are usually prescriptive in a certain manner. I'm saying in this case, it should be what you're saying no to. Let's be very clear about what we're saying no to. What you'll say yes to kind of comes from that. And then how you're able to do it step by step is about staying disciplined. Everybody gets very attracted to the next new shiny object. And so 10-minute delivery of medicines is the most important thing in the world. Let's launch that. And it's not. I mean, for chronic patients, that they know what their thing is. Let's build the right solutions for them. Let's build the trust that they care about. You will inevitably, if you have a store, be able to deliver in a timely manner, whether it's 10 minutes or 30 minutes or 2 hours. I'm not sure it's the biggest difference for something like that. So I think staying true to who you are as a business, understanding what your value proposition is, and not getting distracted by the noise is, I guess, the essential aspect of the playbook. This idea around density is now playing out within our portfolio. And if you look at today, the companies that are all actively growing offline, and let's take a very different kind of one, Cityflo. Cityflo has continued to increase its presence in Bombay. It's understood the routes that work. We're at about 400 buses today. That bus network will only keep growing and it'll grow in Bombay. We've launched Delhi, we have Hyderabad, and I think that's it. And I think at this point, we keep adding and adding and adding there. You get tremendous operating efficiency. And because what is the scarcest commodity or resource in that business are the drivers. So suddenly, if you can create density for the drivers as well, you know that you can manage and balance when there are needs in a different market. Zeno took the call of saying that, look, I can opt to expand in many different ways, but if I expand in just Bombay, brand reinforcement is really strong. And so suddenly now, in many countries you see, Boots in London, Walgreens, Duane Reade, CVS in the US, they are on every corner. You go to any major city, and especially if you go to a city like New York or a city like London, you'll see, like, you can't go 2 blocks without seeing another one of them. That density creates brand recall, creates awareness, allows for the private label business of each of these to grow better. So that's going to be the focus there. Nua's built a great business through marketplace channels. I think the marketplace channels have worked well for it. Quick commerce has worked well for it. But I think to be a truly sustainable, competitive brand, we're going to have to figure out all the channels. So now modern trade has been a big one. We've grown through those, but growing our offline general trade is going to be really valuable. And that again will happen with density. So I think all of these guys are now subscribing to this idea that this is the path. Furlenco has 2 stores in Bangalore. We'll have 5 by the end of this year, where again, it's because that value of being in one city allows for that brand to continue to permeate. I really see the offline side having 2 roles to play. One is actually the revenue and the margin that you'll make from it, but the other is brand reinforcement. And I think if you can do that consistently, and we live in a country where these cities are major markets, and it's great. Let's own those markets individually and then go step by step to others.